It's Edmonton's podcast on the Canada's Podcast Network.
Today's guest is Dary, founder of Sloane. Thanks for coming on the show today, Lauren, and thanks for taking the time to be here with our listeners.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about Sloane, its history, how it started, and what exactly it is.
Yeah, so Sloane is a ethical, slow fashion brand. We focus on women's clothing, specifically one-piece garments that we call jumpsuits. And we just launched the company in September 2018, and it's been going really well. We have a very limited collection. So we have one piece in our main collection. And then we also have limited edition releases seasonally, so every few months. Yeah, it's been going really, really well. Everything is based right here in Edmonton. And I run most of the business myself, with the exception of a team of local sewists who produce the garments out of their home studios.
Tell me a little bit about why you got involved in this.
Well, I'm actually a brand photographer by trade. So I've always had a creative itch. I always loved creative things. And when I was younger, I always wanted to make and design my own clothing, but it was just something that got lost along the way, I guess. I took the photography route instead. And then when I turned 30, it just kind of, the idea came back to me, and I decided that it was something I wanted to pursue. So I applied to fashion design school in Edmonton on a total whim and ended up getting accepted, which was really great and encouraging. But at the time, logistically, with a family and a mortgage and all the everyday, running a business and everything, I just couldn't make full-time school work. So I decided I would give myself 1 year to see if it's something I could teach myself. And then, so I did everything I could. I did online courses. I found mentors, a lot of trial and error. And 13 months later, the Sloane business was launching. So it was a lot, but I'm very proud of it.
What are the sort of the biggest challenges of doing business in Edmonton right now?
I think a big challenge just in my business is that sustainable and ethical fashion isn't quite well known in Edmonton. And I would think it's safe to say even in Alberta and maybe even Canada. So it's kind of a not new, but it's budding here in Canada. It's just that people aren't totally there yet. So I think it takes a lot more education around kind of how we produce clothing and how we do it differently versus all the big box stores and fast fashion and things like that.
What about the benefits of doing business in Edmonton?
Oh, well, Edmonton is amazing for entrepreneurs. I think just the support network, there's people in the industry who didn't know me at all. And I'm, really like in my infancy stages, and they just took me under their wing. It's like this kind of sense of competition kind of goes out the window, and people in Edmonton are just so willing to support and share knowledge. And we really want to see each other succeed. And I think that is just so amazing. And I'm so grateful.
Mm-hmm. Why would you recommend Edmonton to people who want to start up a business?
I think that for that exact reason, just that, there's just so much support here, and people really are wanting to have each other's backs and do what we can to see each other succeed. It's like where people come to make their dreams come true, because there is that constant feeling of support versus, that isolation that sometimes entrepreneurship can have.
Mm-hmm. What's your vision for Sloane as you head forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I think of it often as my mountaintop goal, but I'd love to see us open a production studio / showroom space here in Edmonton, and then eventually across Canada. I think that, we're really big on transparency and being open about how we produce our clothing and all the facets that go into that. So I'd love to have a space where if people wanted, they could come not only try on the clothes, but also see what we're doing and how we're doing it, and kind of be a part of that process.
Now, in hindsight, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you first started?
A lot of things. There's a lot of growing pains, right? But I think honestly, one of the biggest things is sourcing fabric. Sourcing fabric is a really, really hard thing to do, especially living in Canada with minimal, financial resources as a startup. And yeah, honestly, that's one of the biggest growing pains that we've had is around fabric, which is, I never thought that was going to be a big problem. So
now, when you look back on being an entrepreneur, I'm sure you've got a lot of people talking to you and giving you advice, et cetera. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received or being an entrepreneur?
Oh, well, there's two. The first one is to always trust my gut. I think we all have this amazing gut instinct. And I think a lot of the time, maybe when opportunities present themselves, they seem very big and shiny. And we kind of, as entrepreneurs, don't really want to say no to opportunities because we're scared that we're going to miss out on something big. But I think just trusting your gut, if it doesn't feel right, then it likely isn't. And the other thing is my husband told me, so just a little bit of background about me. I'm a feeler. I'm very emotional and I react to situations. So he told me from the very beginning, he's like, you really have to try not to feel the lows too low or the highs too high. You need to try and stay neutral because the lows, you don't want them to get you down too far. And the highs, they might only last a small time, right? So
great piece of advice, actually. I'll use it myself.
Yes.
Let me ask you about being an entrepreneur. Obviously, is quite a busy time, challenging, stressful, etc. What do you do, and where do you go, maybe to take a break, to recharge, maybe think of ideas in a different way, in a different place?
So I have two small children, ages 5 and 3, and I'm home with them a lot. So, not only being a business owner, but having my young family to take care of, it's just a lot going on. So honestly, I like to, when I can, just get out by myself. There's tons of local places in Edmonton for like amazing coffee shops, independent coffee shops and restaurants and all those things that sometimes I just need a break from the chaos and to have just some quiet thinking time. So Edmonton's a great place for that because there's so many amazing independent places to go.
If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what do you think you would do for a profession, a career?
Well, I still have my photography business on the side. I'm not marketing it anymore because Gus Sloan takes up so much more of my time. But honestly, if I wasn't pursuing the Gus Sloan in the whole fashion brand, I would just lean back into my photography business.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a kind of few personal type questions. Everybody has a bucket list these days. Is there anything that sits atop your bucket list right now?
Yes. So Europe is the place for learning and absorbing everything sustainable fashion because they're the pioneers and innovators. So there's a few courses, sustainable fashion courses that I've been eyeing. And honestly, I would just love to go soak up all of their knowledge and expertise and bring it back to Canada and, bring their innovations here and integrate them into the business. That would be amazing. Any
particular places in Europe?
So Italy has a lot. Italy is pretty much the fashion capital of the world. So they have a lot there, and also in London. So there's lots of opportunities. But again, with a small family at home and all the responsibilities of entrepreneurship, it's hard to take even a month off to go and do that. So we'll see.
What book are you currently reading?
So I've been reading Brene Brown's Dare to Lead book, and it's fantastic. Really, anything Brene Brown is great. But also a book I read recently that I come back to over and over again. It's a book called Overdressed, and it's by Elizabeth Klein, and it kind of evaluates the fast fashion climate, and it's very, very interesting. I'd recommend it to anyone.
If you had one word to describe yourself, what would it be and why?
I would pick ambitious, just because I've never let the fear of failure really get in my way. I've always just gone after my dreams and chased them and hunted them and, yeah, I think it just always comes down to ambition.
Okay, then. Now, outside of Edmonton, is there a favorite place in the world that you like to go and spend time at?
I think my favorite place in the world is France. I've only visited France once, but it's kind of my love language. It's a very different way of living. You know, they're more intentional and slow about their way of life. And I have such a deep appreciation for that.
Now, we're creatures of routine. Is there any kind of daily routine or ritual that you do every single day that you don't deviate from at all?
I should say no, because every day looks so different with all of my different responsibilities. You know, some days I'm a full-time stay-at-home mom, and some days I have 2 hours of childcare so that I can work, and it's kind of all over the place. But the one thing that I try and do every night, unless I'm out of town, is after the kids go to sleep, I take some time just by myself and kind of debrief. What did I accomplish today? What did I want to accomplish that I didn't? You know, I go over my calendar and kind of my objectives for the next day. And I think it kind of helps me just to keep that focus when everything is kind of chaotic in my life. Even if it's just for a short time every night, it kind of gives me the hope that tomorrow I'll be able to accomplish what I need to.
Okay. I'm going to present to you a scenario here and get your thoughts on. So imagine a small, beautiful tropical island in the middle of the ocean with only one phone booth and no internet. And we're going to drop you off there with no technology at all. At any time, you can use that one phone booth on the island to call the boat to come pick you up. Now, two things. How long do you think you would last before making that phone call? And secondly, what do you think you'd be doing, while you were there?
Well, it sounds like a very idealistic situation. Am I all by myself on the island?
Yeah, let's say yes.
Okay. If I'm all by myself, I think I would last, I think I could easily last 2 weeks. I think at the 2-week point, I'm pretty good about disconnecting from, the internet and our toys and all that stuff. I think the missing of my family and like wondering, are the businesses okay? Are they on fire? Like what's happening? I think that would be really hard, but I'm really good about when I'm on vacation, like allowing myself to be on vacation. I think that it's important to kind of rest and recharge. So maybe a week and a half to 2 weeks. I think I could do it.
Okay, great. Now, is there anything that you would like to add, Lauren, before you leave us today?
Well, I think that, 2 major points for me as an entrepreneur is I don't think it's ever too late to follow your dreams. And I think with that comes my other favorite point is that, it's okay if your path changes. I don't think we're meant to be on the same path forever. I think as we change as people, it just naturally like shifts and opportunities come up and things change. So I think just as, from an entrepreneur standpoint, those are 2 things that I really try and remember and follow for myself.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren, for being our guest today on Edmonton's podcast.
Thank you.